Yep.
To my podcast about sports.
Howdy, Ags from the Tailgate, home of Aggie football. This is Coach with the delivery man. What's up, Corey?
Hey, buddy. We took one on the chin this week, didn't we? Rough week, if you're a betting man.
Man, every weekend of college football is a good weekend to me, brother. Today's
we had two bad beats. Did you see that?
Huh?
We had two bad beats: the Rams game and the Iowa game.
Man, I'm telling you.
See the Iowa game? Nothing to play for. Game's over. They score a touchdown. Could have taken a knee. Rams, 4 seconds left. Kick a field goal. Doesn't make any sense.
Should at least go for the touchdown at least, right?
I have a little pride. Come on.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I can't believe they're just trying to cover the spread.
They did a good job.
They did, unfortunately.
Yep, unfortunately.
Hey, here's a surprise for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Providence Financial Coaching. Call Steve Gay, Certified Financial Counselor, at 863-732-6224. Integrity, accountability, resourcefulness in financial coaching. Visit their website at providencefinancialcoaching.com. Over 20 years of experience in corporate finance, Aggie owned and operated. Holler at your boy, Steve. Corey, always like to remind the listeners, viewers, to email us at agstailgate@gmail.com. We like to remind them to visit us on YouTube, go see the pod, to leave some comments, let us know what their thoughts are. They've got questions, whatever it may be, bring it.
Hey, subscribe.
Huh?
Where do you subscribe at?
Subscribe, man. Subscribe. That's all you got to do.
Okay.
That way you get your notifications, let you know that, hey, there's another episode today. A couple of comments. Tyler Eubanks, he says, we suck. This was after the Miami game.
I got you.
Sharer. Well, he is of the, my notes ain't real good here.
Good.
Yep. You remember what he said, Corey?
The last thing I heard was we suck.
Yeah, probably something along those lines.
I remember what Louis Bellina said.
What did Louis have to say?
Louis Bellina says we never should have hired Durkin.
Well, there you go.
Never should have got the job in the first place.
New subscriber
is nice to hear people.
New subscriber Rock and Roll joined the group also. New subscriber, Corey. Oh,
nice. Thank you.
I remember what Cody Scherer had to say. He said, hire Dion. Hire
Dion.
Neon
who?
Primetime Deion Sanders. Coach Prime, as we like to call him. Coach Prime, as we like to call him in the business.
How would that fit in Aggie land?
Dude, I am on board 100%, man. I listened to Deion talk on game day on Saturday. I am bought in, dude. 100% bought in. Bring me some Deion.
That's funny, man. I brought this up to you a couple of weeks ago, and you, hell no.
What I said is, I didn't think. No. What I said is, I didn't think the Aggies would hire him, and more importantly, I didn't think he would come
lawyer
here.
Talk, people. This is lawyer talk now.
I didn't think he would come here. I've changed my mind. I think he is prime time and ready for the big time.
I said Johnny Manziel's opening a bar. Let's hire Deion. We'll have Michael Irvin here every weekend. Who knows? Dennis Rodman for some reason might show up. We'll have all the celebs. LeBron James.
I love it.
This will be little LA.
Hey,
everybody's got little Vegas or Stark Vegas. We'll have little LA here. We'll have all the celebrities.
The Rock will be around, man. He's a big primetime fan. I'm telling you.
Well, and plus it'll bring some excitement back again. Everybody gets excited before the season. Then we have like 1 or 2 games, and everybody's like, shit. Colorado's about to get the shit coming after this weekend when they play Oregon, but I'm still high on Deion.
Yeah,
You know?
look, they're a year away from really competing, but in that,
Yeah, I mean they
and
had that kind of trouble against Colorado State.
next year they'll be competing in the Big 12. They'll probably be the best team in the Big 12 next year.
Probably. I'll tell you. All right, we'll go ahead. I had some other comments, but we'll talk about that later.
All right, so look, we're played ULM this weekend, Saturday at Caulfield, beat them 47-3. Corey,
Yep.
good old beatdown. We said it before the game, though, bro. This game was going to tell us nothing about the Aggies.
No.
Tell us nothing about the Aggies, and it didn't. It absolutely told us
Almost
nothing about the Aggies.
it was almost boring to watch the game, to be honest with you. I was watching, I was like, the defense didn't do anything out of the ordinary. That was annoying as hell. The offense. The only thing we did was ask each other who's not playing. That's what we kept asking. It's like, oh, I don't see
Yeah,
so and so.
good
I don't
point.
see
You know,
so and so. I don't see.
we did get some injury news. A few guys, Stewart offensively, Foster offensively, Fathery still hasn't played. You know, he's still out. None of those guys played on Saturday. Evan, according to Jimbo, just some minor precautionary deal. So, you know, no big deal. Supposed to be back. Foster, we don't know. On defense, Chappelle and Gilbert both were sat out the game. Supposedly also some small ones, you know, during the game. Thomas at receiver got hurt. He only got 2 or 3 snaps in before it looked like it's a foot or something along those lines. Besantis got hurt during the game, got pulled out. Apparently an issue also that's sort of a minor issue, so they kept him out for that reason. But you know, more than anything else, that's sort of the biggest news coming out of this game, right? We talked about it previously. I mean, ULM, one of the worst offenses in the entire country last year, one of the worst offenses in the entire country this year, one of the worst defenses in the country last year. I mean, there's nothing really to hang your hat on here. I mean, the fact that you scored 47 on them is not is not something to cheer about. The fact that you only gave up 3 is not really something to cheer about. Fact is, the game didn't mean much to the Aggies. You could tell by the fact that Jimbo sat out a bunch of guys that make a difference, right? And without sort of any consequences. So let's start with the defense, Corey.
Go ahead.
Aggie D. Look,
very unimpressive is all I can say. I was unimpressed by Durkin's calling of the game. If I see a 3-man front again, he's fired.
Ton of 3-man front. More sort
Done
of
with that.
3-3-5 look was what he was putting out there for the most of the day, with guys like Overton, Silla, or Diggs all playing at linebacker, right?
What's he trying to do? Get those guys playing time? Is that all he's trying to do? I don't get it.
I have no idea. Another one is Eni White got some time on the field, but also at linebacker, right? Like, you know, Shamar Turner, Nolan, and McKinley were the 3 defensive linemen starting out. And then
I didn't think Turner was going to play in that game. I thought you told me Turner was suspended or something.
No, what I said is that, you know, he got in trouble. That we'll see if he gets suspended. But apparently they're not even worried about suspending him. So no,
yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
Big deal there.
Must have a good lawyer.
I did feel the one adjustment then that they came back with, and you know, with Gilbert out of the lineup, what they do, they moved Richardson to a deep safety look, and they brought Anderson up in close to the line and stuff, you know. But like, the one guy that can't cover is the guy that you put deep. So it somehow understand how that works out.
I saw Anderson have a nice pass breakup in the game. That's about one thing I remember. I don't remember a whole lot about the game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it did. Look, bringing Anderson up into the box, I did think helped for him. I thought you saw a little bit more of his aggressiveness play out. But ultimately, you know, we did a lot of three man lines. Still no pressure. We get 2 sacks. Shamar Turner's the guy that creates a lot of those. As a matter of fact, this year he leads the team in sacks, which is something I predicted, I believe, before the season.
I saw that we had 3 sacks. We only had 2.
I thought it was only 2, but I could be wrong.
I saw that Brooks and somebody else had half a sack each.
Yep, 2 halves is 1.
I know, but I thought there was another guy that had. Let me pull up the stats. Go ahead, keep talking. I'll look it up.
So all in all, man, I mean, not to get too crazy on this, right? I mean, they held ULM to 3 points, but they still allowed some big plays, and I think they allowed over 100 yards rushing in this game, didn't they?
130 something. I thought 120. I can't remember what it was. I'm looking it up right now.
Overall, nothing that really impresses you. They still didn't get much pressure on the quarterback. When the quarterback was trying to throw, in most instances, he was still had plenty of time to read in the field. The guy is a horrible thrower of the football. I mean, and he still completed 1 big long deep pass on us. I mean, I was just uninspired. Nothing really good to take away from this, right?
3 sacks. Geronte Davis and Brooks, half of each.
Shamar Turner. Davis got 1. Yeah, I forgot about him.
Shamar Turner and 1 by himself, Malik Silva.
There you go.
So don't question me anymore. I appreciate that.
I'll never do it again.
Hey, they gave up 127 yards rushing. 127.
I mean, so I was listening to Texas Ags earlier, and they come out and it's like, well, this defense really showed a lot. Only allowed 3 points, and they were like talking about it, and it's like I don't see it. I don't see it. This is against one of the worst offenses in all of college football, right? So, they still allowed 100 and some odd yards rushing. You know what I mean?
We should be playing in the other team's backfield the whole game. I don't give a shit who's on the defensive line. You got 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. 4 or 5 of those guys should be on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and we didn't have anybody. Like they're comfortable just standing back, holding their line.
For a lot of this game, they used York as a spy on the quarterback. Also, to be honest with you, I don't think he's the guy for that job because he's more of a downhill kind of guy.
I think Cooper needs to do that.
He's not the athletic, super speedy type of linebacker that can get sideline to sideline. And sure enough, the quarterback sort of beat him to the corner a couple of times. I mean, I just question every time that DJ Smirkin Durkin makes a decision, I question it.
He makes a decision. Why is Jimbo signing off on these decisions? Does he not realize that he's the head coach and he's signing off on every decision that Durkin makes and how it makes him look?
Like an idiot?
I mean, yeah. Jimbo needs to stay away from the offense. Let Petrino keep doing what he's doing and go just whisper in Durkin's ears like, "You're fucking up. You're doing bad."
Hey, listen, and here's a thought. Maybe he should take over play calling duties for the defense because when he was calling the offense, nobody was scoring. Maybe when he's calling the defense, nobody's scoring.
There you go.
Just
you notice, you listen to Jimbo talk on that 1 year watching the college football playoffs, and he seemed to know every play that was going to happen next and why they did it. So that's what a defensive coordinator should be looking at, right?
I love it.
It's obvious Durkin didn't know shit.
The other day we said, okay, after the Miami game, we said, okay, what do we expect for this defense? Well, we expect them to do what Durkin does, which is kind of sit back and play soft, right? Like the whole idea of bend and don't break, but ultimately after Miami, it was like bend and break. So what do? Well, they do exactly that, right? They go softer. They go.
Oh, it was awful.
Against Miami, they allowed too many points because they had plenty of, Miami had all the time in the world to throw the football and there was no pressure. And now, since that happened, what are we going to do? We're going to go softer. We're not going to get more aggressive. We're not going to go after the quarterback. We're not going to change things in that sense. What we're going to do is go the opposite route. We're going to go more 3-man line. We're actually going to back our linebackers up further. We're gonna take our secondary guys, push them back, make sure that we gave plenty of cushion on the outside, and we're just gonna be softer than even that for this game.
Yeah, it was awful. I don't know, understand it at all. It's like we're afraid to be aggressive. I mean, and then he goes, and it looks like he's defending what he's doing because we gave up 3 points. We gave up 127 yards rushing, 220 yards of total offense is all ULM have was 222. Miami have. Who gives a shit what ULM have? We need to be practicing, getting ready for the next game. That's what these games are for, right? It's
But
like a practice, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. He's going to put it on the fact, hey, look, we just allowed 3 points to ULM, baby. That's great defense.
Baby.
That's great defense.
Baby.
Great defense.
Yeah, I called this game. I said we were going to beat them by a lot. We didn't get the over. But what did I say? I said we're going to beat them 52-3 or something, I think.
Well, the 3 you got, but the 52 you didn't. Who's the player?
No.
Who's your defensive player of the game? Does it even matter?
Turner played great.
I thought it was Shamar Turner.
I'm trying to think of who else I saw that. I didn't really remember seeing anybody else make anything that I call outstanding. Turner made the sack. He was the most disruptive guy that we had.
He was
seemed like
disruptive.
he cared.
He was getting after it. I thought he was playing hard. I did think Shamar Turner was the guy. Deuce Harmon in the secondary had a couple plays, but he got beat once. Who else? I mean, sort of in the secondary. Matthews got a ton of playing time. I thought, I think, he's you look at him, dude, and he's just a physical specimen. Obviously,
Matthews.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a chance to be really, really good as he gets more and more playing time. But the problem is none of these guys are ever going to make that much of a difference without anybody letting them be more aggressive, right? I mean, as long as they're playing passive the way they are, everybody looks average.
They're playing passive and thinking, and it's not aggressive. It's not defense. It's not what I want. It's not what I want from 5-star players.
It makes them all look average, to be honest with you.
I mean, right now, none of those guys would be on. I don't think they're on any draft boards right now at all.
I'll never understand why Durkin ever got hired here at A&M. I really won't. I can't understand the train of thought that Jimbo went through in order to hire one of the worst defensive coordinators in the country for 2 years running in order to replace one of the best defensive coordinators in the country prior to that, right? I mean, it's the thought process to me. I'll never see it, but it's typical Jimbo, right? I mean, and he's one of these guys that, but I know this guy, whatever, and he could, I struggled against him, so let's bring him in, whatever, like it just makes absolutely no sense, and he'll justify it, and then he'll tell you he's doing a great job, and then he's telling you that he's a great coach, but at the end of the day, the production doesn't show that. It just doesn't show it. And with Durkin, it never will. Never will.
I don't know if you heard, but the Aggies, I think they're hiring a sexual assault awareness speaker to come talk to A&M. So just be ready. I'm just saying. It's working for Michigan State. They're getting rid of their coach like that. So
I don't know.
If we hire a sexual assault awareness speaker, it could be time to go. I'm just saying.
I'm telling you right now, nobody's happier than Michigan State for what happened in that situation because
it seems kind of convenient, doesn't it? Seem convenient that this all happened.
Look, I feel bad for the lady. That poor thing had to endure whatever horrible experience that.
I'm sure she'll endure millions of dollars in her bank account too.
Yeah, but she should make sure that Michigan State pays her at least half of the remaining $95 million that they owe Mel Tucker.
I'm pretty sure she's gonna get on the phone with A&M pretty soon and be like, "Hey, I just got rid of Mel Tucker. What do you want me to do for you?"
We'll stay away from that.
Yeah, if y'all want Deion Sanders, give me a call.
Neon, baby. I like it. Going to the Aggie offense, man. Once again, a couple of things. Naboo started at center, Dewberry at left guard. Basantis was back at right tackle, but he played about most of the first half, got hurt. Thomas
Where did he
got
get
a
hurt?
couple plays in, right?
Where did he get hurt? Basantis. Anything serious on Basantis?
No, he kind of got rolled up on behind, and then but apparently he's fine. And I'm taking Jimbo's words after the fact, which really mean absolutely nothing. So who knows? We do get to see a lot more of 9, 0, and 7 with Evan Stewart and Thomas out for most of this game. We saw a lot more of the tight end, 19 Johnson in there, and
Maybe too much.
getting balls thrown his way.
Yeah.
Um,
Saw Max Wright catch a pass too.
huh?
Saw Max Wright catch a pass.
Hey, Max Wright looks good, man. Always looks good. To me, I'll tell you this: he underappreciated Max Wright, who should be getting more playing time. Let's talk about Jake Johnson because you have something to say about the fella.
He just, I don't know what to say about him. His hands look good. His routes are all right. He just doesn't look like the type of guy right now that I expected him to be. I expected like maybe a Gronk or a Travis Kelce type. And what I'm getting is like
Oh yeah, he's not
a
Kelce
D
at
or
all.
C version. I mean, he doesn't block. He's not a willing blocker. I can't remember who the pass was to him. Jake was right there. Didn't put his hands and body on anybody. Just you know, he does a good job in the middle of
Not
the field,
Gronk.
but
He's not Gronk because the dude doesn't block. He's not
right,
Kelce because he can't run.
he doesn't run the routes. And I mean, I'm not sure who to compare him to. It's just, I mean, I'd almost rather see Max Wright get more playing time. I think Max Wright's not as quick as Johnson and probably doesn't have the hands, but what he adds in the blocking scheme of it, I think would more than make up because you don't
Yeah,
need
but
how many
Max,
guys you need out on the routes. You got 4 receivers that can catch the ball.
Jake is a guy that to me he did show. I think he does have good hands, man. He catches the ball well when the ball's thrown, and obviously big body, big big ability to sort of rebound, right? Like block people out and do those things in space. He
Right.
doesn't do a very good job of doing that blocking, but in space when catching the football, he tends to. But man, he's kind of a bumbling, stumbling. It isn't exactly smooth running out there, right? He's not a speedster by any means.
Surprised I don't see him more in the red zone stuff, because he's a big guy. Like, figure that's where you'd see a lot of them, kind of like
He'll
the
get the
jump
ball up high
balls.
type of situation, right? But they don't do that. They don't do that with Thomas. They don't do that with Walker. They don't do that with any of them. So,
Yeah, I
that's
don't get it.
he obviously had a bigger part in the game today. But another guy that had a bigger part in the game today was Anias, man, and it was from the get-go, right? You could tell they were getting him the ball. They handed him the ball a couple of times. It was important for them to make Zero a part of this deal, and he had a huge game, 120 some odd yards. The dude, if you ask me, he looks better than he ever has catching the ball, hands wise, and with the ball in his hands.
He looks quick.
Yeah.
No, he looked real. I mean, I don't know if it was just the ULM team we were playing, but when they handed him the ball or got him the ball outside, he looked quick. I don't know if ULM looked slow, but he just looked really quick. I think that I like the idea of them handing the ball off, but I mean, you're talking about guys how they play. I thought Ruben Owens looked pretty good. I think he's looking better. He's a real upright runner. I didn't realize how much of an upright Eric Dickerson type runner he is until I really saw it. I'll tell you, Moss looked good on his few runs too.
I thought the tailbacks in general all looked very good, but I do think that you're getting a better look at Ruben Owens maturing a little bit from game to game. You can see he gets a little bit more comfortable each time. I do think that Moss looked more comfortable today or Saturday than previous weeks, right? You can see him, I think, starting to see things a little bit better. look, those guys all got to get more touches, right? The running game just isn't getting much, right? They're just not getting many opportunities.
We don't have the O line for it right now. I don't think they're still not getting the holes even against ULM. I mean, I saw some cutback lanes that they did hit, like Owens hit a couple cutbacks, but for the most part, like Anias when he got the run, there wasn't nothing there. I mean, it's
they're still not good up front blocking. The offensive line is still very porous, man. And this is against ULM, right? And I watched number 64, who's your senior right
Robinson.
guard, who was a supposed draft pick, high-end draft pick last year and all this stuff. And that dude still has problems. I watched him get his butt whooped on one that ended up with pressure in the backfield. I mean, the guy, to me, it's just ridiculous that this group of players who's now, they can talk about there's not that much experience. They all played together last year. Now, you may have changed some of those guys. You may have gotten rid of the father already, but doesn't mean he ain't there. The guy's there. You might have chose to take him out of the lineup, but the fact of the matter is that these guys still don't know how to work a combo block in the zone blocking scheme, right? They still can't figure that out. And as you express that, think about that for a second. Because this is a team that's facing much lesser talent on the other side of the field, right? It's not like we're talking about they're going up against LSU or Georgia or Texas, one of those teams with big time players on the front side, right? And instead, we're talking about guys for ULM, who's a team that was one of the worst defenses in the country last year, one of the worst in the country last year. And you couldn't run against them consistently. You know what I'm saying? And that, to me, still shows a problem. There's still an issue there. They still were able to get pressure on Connor a couple of times, right? And I'll say this. As you look at the scheme, everybody wants to talk Petrino. And look, I've said it multiple times. Petrino has made this offense 100 times better than what Jimbo's was, right? He's already done that. But if you go look at him, they're still one-on-one offense, man. It's all about one-on-one matchups, one receiver versus one DB. And that's all they do. He looks for the matchup and goes and exploits a matchup. There's still no real creativity to this offense. There's still no, double moves. There's still no trickery. There's still no misdirection. There's still none of that stuff, right? Rub routes. They don't really do that much. They still don't do that much, right? And at some point, you get matched up with athletes that are basically about as good as yours. You go face Georgia, you go face LSU, you go face Alabama. Yeah, we've got great receivers, but a lot of those matchups are going to be at least somewhat close to even, right?
Right.
I just hate the fact that we cannot do something out, in order to put our players in a position to make them better, right? Not just as good as they are. Oh, I'm going to showcase their talent. No. Not only am I going to showcase the talent, I'm going to showcase their talent and more, right? Like I'm going to put them in position to showcase that talent at a higher level, right? We still don't do that.
What year, Nobu, is he a true freshman or is he a redshirt?
Redshirt freshman.
Okay.
Last thing I'm going to say about this offense. Still super, super impressed with Connor. I think the kid really has about as good a sense of everything around him as anybody I've seen since Johnny.
Yeah, he's the best quarterback I've seen here since Johnny.
He's got unlike a lot of the guys, his predecessors, like he actually moves away from pressure. He actually is able to, sort of feel it to get rid of the football. He knows where the routes are at in order to, anticipate those things when there's pressure coming. Just little movements inside the pocket to get himself just enough time to deliver the ball or whatever it may be. right? When he takes off running, it feels like he's got, he knows where he's going, right? So I am impressed with him, and I just think he's going to continue to get better and better. I think without him, this offense and the Aggie offense right now would be in a much worse place. If Max Johnson were the guy, we'd have a problem because he doesn't have that
No.
anticipation, right? So he'd be taking a lot more sacks right now than what Connor is. And I'm not trying to speak badly of Max, right? Hey man, I'm glad we have him here. We're good. Hopefully we don't need him this year. Hopefully Connor stays healthy, but I'm glad he's a part of the team. I know he's a hard worker. He's one of those dudes. I know the difference between him and Connor is that with 2 seconds of time to get rid of the football, Connor will get rid of it. Max will take the sack. That's it.
Yeah, you noticed. I mean, even playing with the second team like Max did, he's getting pressure, and he doesn't seem to understand when the pressure's coming. Connor seems to know when the pressure's coming, getting rid of the ball, even with a crappy offensive line.
Yeah. Who's your offensive player of the game? Is it Connor?
I was leaning Ruben Owens, to be honest with you. I enjoyed watching Ruben run the ball. Anias had a great game. Connor, but yeah, I'd lean Ruben Owens. I like watching him get the ball.
I like that. I'm you know me. I love Anias, man. So anytime Anias has a game like he did today, I'm going to go with him. I also think he puts so many things on tape that aren't in the box score, right? The way he blocks, the way his effort, and all those types of things. I love what he does. He's my player of the game. I mean, but you could have gone with any one of those guys, including Connor. And once again, let's remember, it was ULM. All right. Any last thoughts on that? I think we can probably move on. What do you think, Corey?
I'm ready to move on.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about around college football. I think we talked before this past weekend of games. This might have been the worst weekend of games all year, right?
Right. Wasn't good.
Having said that, what do you think? Thoughts?
Quick take, I'd say SEC is down overall. I think other conferences have caught up with our top end wasn't where it's at. Georgia looks beatable. Alabama, we know, is beatable. They struggled in South Florida.
LSU's beatable.
Who?
LSU's beatable.
LSU's already been beaten. Tennessee, not as good as we thought. It gives me more hope for the Aggies, as I thought it was doom and gloom against Miami. With the rest of the SEC, the way they're playing, I could see us beating Mississippi State. Hell, I could see us beating Alabama if they keep playing like that. I could see us beating Tennessee. I could see us beating who else? I mean, possibly. I mean, Ole Miss looks the best out of all of them. They look the
LSU,
best.
I'd say LSU probably looked the best out of all of them, to be honest with you.
I'm pretty sure we lost money this week on the season for Vanderbilt. They lost to UNLV.
How bad is that?
That's pretty bad. I'll tell you who's really bad is Stanford. They lost to Sacramento State. That's bad.
That is bad.
I'll tell you who's else is bad is Pittsburgh, because they lost to West Virginia. It's not good. It's not good. But I mean, Florida State had trouble against Boston College. What does that tell us? I mean, their quarterback got dinged up.
They were up quite a few touchdowns, right? They were up quite a few touchdowns, and then sort of took their foot off the gas, and then and the quarterback got hurt for a little bit, right, and all that. And so there may have been some circumstances there. I'm pretty sure that they were just trying to keep everybody from getting hurt in the rest of that game. But
you watched the Iowa State game? That was the most boring football. They could not move the ball to save their life against Ohio defense. Ohio, not Ohio State, Ohio. Ridiculous.
That's a crazy deal. Did you see the video of the coach Campbell? So I guess when he was going onto the field or coming off the field, one of the fans started harassing him or something, and said, just basically told him he should be fired or something along those lines, And the guy turns around and has to get held up by like his players. He goes to charge this fan because the guy said like 2 words to him. Matt Campbell needs to worry about himself, man. Don't worry about what that other dude's saying. 3 years ago,
screw that guy. Let that guy back it up. He'd pop his ass.
3 years ago,
People
he
wanna
could have
get on
got
the
any
field.
job in the country. Any job in the country. He should have took the money and ran. Because now, why would anybody hire him? The guy's done some of the worst coaching over the last 2 years at Iowa State that I've seen anywhere.
You just said it. Iowa State, some of the worst coaching at Iowa State. You know how hard it is to get talent into Iowa State?
Hey, look,
It's
2
not
years
easy.
ago when everybody expected them to be world beaters in the Big 12, they had all their talent coming back, and they just crashed and burned.
He got a quarterback, and he got Purdy into the NFL. He got Brees Hall in the NFL.
Brock Purdy's an all NFL quarterback that was struggling at Iowa State. That tells you everything.
NFL.
No,
All NFL.
all NFL.
Anyway, Kansas State lost to Missouri. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. One, I think Eli Drinkowitz is an idiot. Have you heard him talk? That guy. Oh my God. Anyway,
Drinking.
but I give Missouri a lot of credit. Actually, I do give Missouri a lot of credit. I thought they came out and played their butts off. Defensively, man, I thought they did a lot of good things. And did just enough offensively to pull that one out with a 61-yard field goal that Drinkowitz almost screwed up somehow by having a delay a game at the end there. I mean, the whole thing was kind of crazy. Needless to say, that's a big win for the SEC because otherwise, I think they wouldn't have one quality win in all of non-conference play.
Seriously. Hey, okay, what's your take on Georgia? What's wrong with it? Is South Carolina that good? Is Georgia that bad? What's going on?
If you watch that game, you sort of saw that one, the front for South Carolina, and we've talked about this when we're talking about South Carolina before, those fronts can't stand up to the top end talent at Georgia, at LSU, at those types of places. I was going to say A&M.
What about A&M?
No, we don't bring pressure, so don't worry about that.
Okay, I thought you said the top fronts. It's like we don't have one of the top fronts.
Not anymore.
Okay.
And eventually that's what happened, right? The Georgia defensive line just dominated in the second half. But not only that, remember this, and this is important because early in that game when they were having success, they had Juice Wells. They would get those receivers the ball early, and Juice is a guy that has a little bit of go in him, right? He's one of the best receivers in the country. And they were able to make some plays and get some scores in there. And he got hurt. He was out the rest of the game. And after he got hurt, they didn't score again, right?
They didn't move the ball after that, really.
They didn't. And so
go ahead.
I do want to say this about Georgia, and I think people are starting to recognize the fact that this offense without Bennett, this offense without their offensive coordinator, all of a sudden doesn't look quite as explosive, quite as good, quite as innovative, right? You're not as scared about this offense. I think that if you have a team that can sort of match up a little bit, you're not afraid to go play Georgia. And mind you, that was at Georgia. That game was at Georgia. Georgia was at home for that. It was.
What'd you think about the quarterback for Georgia?
He's average.
Yeah, I didn't think he didn't impress me. He didn't put the zip on the ball. I thought he would. He didn't have the arm strength. Who's the second best team in the East?
Man, that's the one thing you do know about Georgia is they don't have anybody to beat them. There's nobody. To beat
Kentucky's not as good as I thought they were. South Carolina's lost to Tennessee's not as good as I thought they were. I mean, who else you got? Missouri?
No. Is Missouri the second best team in the East? It might be. They might
be. Maybe. I mean,
Florida, a Florida team that
we thought was the worst team in the SEC almost.
I mean, 2 weeks ago looked incompetent. Graham Mertz.
Maybe I'm selling Vandy short. Maybe Vandy could win 2 more games. Maybe they could beat Tennessee or Florida or South Carolina or Tennessee. Or, who knows?
Is there any one of those teams that you come back and say, well, maybe they've got a chance to be better later?
South Carolina doesn't have the depth. Tennessee, I wasn't impressed at all with their game. They look more like a running team. Milton, I wasn't impressed with him. Their O line looks bad. Florida, I think, looked more impressive than anything. Running the ball. God dang, they were running the hell out of the ball against Tennessee.
Yeah. Look, those running backs on Florida's roster and Etienne specifically, that dude's legit, right?
Yeah.
And if I thought for a second that offensive line could sustain that and do that against real competition, I'd say Florida maybe, but I don't think they have the pieces around it. When they face a real defense, that team's going to struggle. And Tennessee's problems, man, Joe Milton looked horrible. That dude,
Yeah.
Just like 2 years ago when they benched him, and 2 years before that when Michigan benched him, he looks horrible.
Yeah.
He just looks bad.
I tell you, I watched that Ertz kid for Graham Mertz or whatever his name is for Florida.
Yeah.
He does a good job in the face of pressure, keeping his head downfield and getting the ball out. A lot of quarterbacks will get scared, and he does a good job moving in the pocket, finding room, and still looking downfield. He did a good job with that. I was impressed with him. They had that little number receiver 3. I can't remember the guy's name. They got him the ball like 6 times out of the first 6 snaps of the game. I like the way they find ways to get their best players the ball. That's something they did do. I like that. You don't see that in them. They tried to get Anias the ball this week, but other than that, you don't.
I honestly wasn't that impressed. I wasn't that impressed. I think
Alabama. How bad is Alabama?
Out of any of those teams that I think could have a chance to be better as the year gets on, I think it's got to be Kentucky, to be honest with you. I just think.
Really?
I mean,
they have not impressed me 3 weeks in a row. I thought that quarterback.
I think they got potential there. They just haven't been playing that great, have they?
A&M has potential. A&M has potential.
So the offense coordinator has been going through some health issues. Maybe that he's back. I don't know. I don't know why.
Anyway, all right. If we were in the East, would A&M win the East this year or be second?
A&M could lose to any team in the East, by the way. They could lose. We could lose to any one of those teams.
Don't say Vandy.
We almost lost to Vandy 2 years ago, and I'm pretty sure that was a better team than this year's.
Yeah, probably. Hey, Alabama, did they find their quarterback yet?
They've gone back to Milroe. Saban has declared that Milroe is the starting quarterback for the rest of the year.
Dude, those other 2 quarterbacks look awful. I mean, awful against South Florida.
Listen, what did I tell you before the season? The dude from Notre Dame is garbage. I told you.
He did. He looked awful.
Wow. That dude looked horrible.
His arm, I didn't know his arm was that weak, or if he was tentative. What was going on?
Let me tell you something, though. And here's the problem with that Alabama offense. You can tell me all you want to about the players and the quarterback. The problem is the damn guy calling the freaking plays. Because this ain't this isn't just a situation where one quarterback looked crappy or one. At the end of the day, what's Milroe really good at?
Running.
Yes. And how many times did they actually give him an opportunity to go called quarterback runs? They just don't. And here's the thing. You think we talked about that? I talked about this earlier in the season also. That offense should be a ground and pound over the top type of offense. But instead of getting into formations that allow you to ground and pound with 2 tight end sets and a back or 2 backs and a tight end, no. They're going to spread it out. They're going to put 4 wide receivers out there and then try to run the football. And then your offensive line gets their ass whooped. I'm telling you, that dude needs to be fired right now. He's been there for a total of 3 games, right? Is it 3 games? He's had 3 games. They need to get rid of his ass. Saban needs to call the plays himself.
Okay. I like it. Hey, a couple of things of note that I noticed. South Alabama beat Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State 33-7. How bad is this Oklahoma State team? I see why that quarterback transferred out and sitting on the bench at Ole Miss. He knew how bad it was going to be over there.
That's bad.
He didn't want to get beat up. is the
there's
okay,
something
the
to be
Pac,
said about there's something to be said, and you're seeing it. Look, maybe we're seeing it in Alabama too, but there's something to be said about the fact that sometimes you just stay too long, right? And head coach there, Gundy's been there forever,
yeah.
and he's been pretty successful over that time period, right? I mean, the fact that he's taken a team that has historically has underperformed and not been very good, and he's got them to into respectability and actually had some really good seasons over that period of time. But I think the message is just worn thin, right? Like nobody cares anymore. He's been there so long that
Time to move on.
it's not making a difference, right? And maybe that's the same problem with Saban, man. Maybe Saban has outlasted his stay at Alabama. Maybe
A couple other games to note real quick. BYU beat Arkansas. Any thoughts on that? Did you watch anything? I didn't see it.
yeah, I watched some of it.
It was at Arkansas, by the way.
Yeah, at Arkansas. So Arkansas was at home, and they came out to an early lead, and all of a sudden they did nothing. They just did nothing, right? And that offense looks like it's sputtering. They don't have the offensive line isn't as good as it has been. They're not able to create the big holes for the running game. Once again, it's a new offensive coordinator. They're having problems clearly. This sort of goes back to this is Big 12, by the way. BYU Big 12, BYU over SEC again. I think it once again goes back to what you started with, man. Just that the SEC looks less.
They don't look as physical. They don't look as physical as they have in the past. I mean, I'm talking the O line and D line beating you up, and you running the ball, doing whatever you want to. And it's. I mean, I watched Colorado State. Did you watch that game at all?
Yeah, I watched some of it.
Did you? What do you think about
Early.
Colorado?
It got a little late for me as that game was ending.
See, I watched the second half. I didn't watch the first half. Did Colorado compete against Oregon, USC, Washington State? I don't think they can either. I don't think they can. I don't think they have the horses for it, especially losing Hunter, their best offensive and defensive weapon. I don't think they can stick with them.
Yeah,
what's it called?
And let me just say this: that was an ugly, just unnecessary hit on him. That's a dirty freaking play. That was bad. I like him. That kid's a good kid. Hunter's a good kid, man. I feel bad for him.
Did you see the hit yesterday in the Redskins game? Not the Redskins, the Commanders game. Logan Thomas coming across the middle. The guy from Denver he held on to the touchdown pass, but the guy decleated him. I'm talking it was something that they don't need to do anymore in college football or in pro football at all.
Yeah, and so speaking of the Pac-12, I'll tell you this, man. I'm excited to watch some of those games, and they start this week. There's several really good weeks, and we're going to talk about them in our next podcast. But the Pac-12 is loaded, my friend, and they deserve to have the thing I worry about for them right now is, do they beat each other? So does everybody in that league end up with 2 losses because of the fact that they all just beat each other, right? And they still deserve to have representation in the playoffs. I think they're the best conference in the country this year.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think Ohio State showed up against Western Kentucky this week.
Ohio State
Western
did
Kentucky
their best game of the year by far, for sure. Yeah.
And I think Western Kentucky's probably going to win their conference because they have a good offense. They didn't play terrible. Their coach just went for it on 4th down way too many times and didn't make it. Anything else about this weekend?
Last thing I'm going to say is I was impressed by LSU's performance. I was really impressed by LSU's performance on both sides of the ball. I mean, Mississippi State had no chance. No chance. And on the flip side of this is what I said before the season. Losing a guy like the Pirate is going to make a difference. And that team,
very huge.
Based off of what we saw this Saturday, they're not even close. They don't
have an offensive identity anymore. Their identity's gone.
Rodgers, who's a guy that's looked great for the last 3 years, looked lost out there. Lost.
He did.
So I'll leave it at that. I did think LSU was LSU was probably the team in the SEC that showed the most this weekend and had the best overall performance.
All right, off the top of your head, real quick, who's the worst Power 5 school?
Virginia.
NCAA football. Good call. That's a really good call, man. I might have to agree with you. They're pretty bad. There's either them or another ACC team like Virginia Tech, pretty bad too.
Yeah, I was going to ask, who'd you have in mind? Because that's it's. But Stanford.
I was looking at the scores from last week, and I was thinking
Stanford apparently is trying to make a run at that, right?
I was thinking West Virginia for a long time, and they beat Pittsburgh this week, so I'm thinking Pittsburgh was up there. But that's the thing. The ACC has some good teams at the top, really bad teams at the bottom. That's the problem. SEC, besides Vandy, there's no other team that's that low. There's a whole bunch of teams right there in the middle.
Are you
There's
sure?
Nobody, I don't know. There could be at the end of the season. It might be in Tennessee the way they look. Jesus, that was awful. That was embarrassing. A lot of big games, like you said, this week, man. There's a lot of big games. I'm sure we'll talk about it Thursday or whenever we do it, Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday podcast, we'll get into this coming week, and I'm excited about that. Here, look, questions from the tailgate brought to you by Frida Homes, building Aggie dreams, custom home builders with over 15 years of experience in the Brazos Valley. If you're looking for someone that cares about you and the details you care about, contact Frida Homes. Visit them on Instagram at frida.homes or give Justin a call, 979-450-4466. When you call, just remember, everyone loves their Frida Homes.
Frida Homes.
All right, so biggest takeaway from the week 3 of college football, man.
There's a lot of bad college football out there. There's a whole lot of bad, man. There's not much good, a whole lot of bad. I still love watching the games, but watching Tennessee get beat by Florida, didn't see it coming. Wouldn't have picked it. Pac-12 is really good. The top end of the Pac-12.
I think that's my biggest takeaway. I think ultimately, that's my biggest takeaway. I think that the Pac-12 is the best conference in the country. That's what I'm going to go with, and that the SEC has fallen off precipitously, like just off the edge of a cliff. Right?
They really have. I mean, it's all over one season. I mean, just the way they've gone downhill over one season. Tennessee's fallen off. Georgia's fallen off. Alabama's fallen off. Every one of the top teams. And that's what sucks about A&M. This could have been our year.
Teams that you expected to sort of maybe take some of that slack, like a Tennessee, like a Kentucky, they haven't done it. A&M, LSU haven't done it, right?
Could you imagine what we'd be talking about right now if A&M would have beat Miami? Could you imagine with the way these other teams are looking? If we could have just beat Miami, played some defense, we would be, oh my God, we'd be stoked.
Look, I think it's crazy to think that now we're talking about ACC maybe is better than the SEC. The Big Ten looks like the SEC. The Pac-12, we may be the 4th best. Hey, maybe the worst of the top 5 conferences. Hell, the Big 12 is better because Texas beat Bama. OU's looking pretty decent. I mean, I don't know.
So if Georgia loses a game in the regular season, do you think we'll get a team into the playoffs?
If Georgia loses a game during the season, we shouldn't get anybody into the playoffs. I'll take that back. If LSU runs the table from here on out and beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, I think LSU deserves to get in.
I don't think they're going to run the table.
But they'd have to run the table. That's my point.
Yeah, I don't see them running the table. I mean, they got A&M, they got Alabama. For some reason, they're going to lose one of those 2 games. I don't know which one it is, A&M or Alabama.
I'm going to go out and say this: if there's an SEC team out there that has 1 loss, wins this conference, they should get in.
And I can't believe Nick Saban didn't put Milroe in the game against South Florida, because after I watched those other 2 quarterbacks play, I could obviously tell Milroe is a better quarterback of the 3, even as bad as he looked against Texas. Those other 2, if they were on the field against Texas, you wouldn't have even close to a chance.
No question. All right, second question here. Biggest positive and negative from the Aggies week 3 game?
The positive is seeing other guys get the ball. Anias get the ball. Moose got a few targets. I think I'd like to see him get the ball more. Ruben Owens looked good. The negatives is obvious. Durkin. It's the same defense. The offensive line still doesn't look that good. It's the same things we had questions with going into the season.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. It's just getting repetitive talking about it. It's really getting old, you know? I'd like to find something else to talk about.
I'll tell you this, and you called it, like getting those guys involved. I love that. I definitely thought that was a positive. Moose, the few times he touched the ball, I mean, you can just tell the dude's a player, man.
Yeah.
How
He's smooth.
he's smooth. He just and the guys on the other side couldn't even touch him. Like at one point, he's just like boop, 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 boop. They can't even touch him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm more than impressed with that kid. I really and you know what else? I'm also not. I'm also very impressed with the fact that the Walker, the Naez, those guys get in there and they work their butts off. They like the blocking much better from those two guys than you see from Evan or Thomas. And so that's just something to think about with those two guys. I'd say negative 100% as you brought it up. DJ Durkin saw his defense give up only 3 points while playing nothing but 3-man fronts.
I thought we were done with the 3-man front. Why does he still have that in his repertoire? Why that just needs to go away?
Well, now
that could be on like a prevent defense is all you could use it for. And we're not trying to prevent shit right now.
We'll see. Yeah, he ain't getting rid of it because that's his scheme. So it is what it is, and it's sad because it just gonna push him to use it more and do it more. So we'll go from there. So Gig 'em Aggies, AP, Corey, signing out from the tailgate.